Kelly Gross, and this is Faces of Faith, Episode 3. We're sitting here in Christ the King Cathedral. I'm with Father Bill Anton and Monsignor Gene Driscoll, and we're going to talk about their visit to Rome for the canonization of the popes. So, gentlemen, tell me what that experience was like for you.
It's hard to believe that we were there. It was such an experience, having met the Pope in person when he was alive, and then having the opportunity now to be back when he was being raised to the sainthood. It was really a wonderful experience.
Father Bill, you were talking a little bit about how the streets were blocked off and a mass of people was there for this event. Tell me kind of what that was like.
Well, you do a lot of walking when you're over there, and you really have to have good legs in Rome because you do a lot of walking. But on the day of the Mass, on the 27th, there was no taxis running. It was just, everything was blocked off around the Vatican, so you had to walk to get there, you know, and really with Monsignor Gene, we probably could have used a wheelchair for him because he's getting old and getting a little harder to get around, but it was worth it. You know, he kind of did his penance. We all did our penance by walking, but it was definitely worthwhile.
About how many people would you say were in attendance?
I don't think they ever got a final count.
The figure that I heard from the press was 800,000, but it could be more than that.
Okay.
Because it's just, you know, all the hotels and everything were full.
There were 1,000 bishops and over 8,000 priests.
Close were you to the action?
Oh, from where we were sitting to where the Pope was probably 200 yards.
Okay.
The square is pretty big.
Yeah.
But I had my camera with the big zoom lens, so I was able to get some decent pictures.
Okay. So you were telling me that you actually met Pope John Paul II.
I did. In 2004, the bishop asked me to go with him to Rome for the ad liminal visit, which is a normal one for the bishops every 5 years to visit with the Pope. I bring a case study of your diocese. And he asked me to go, and when it came time for the bishop to have his own interview, he was able to take me in to meet the Pope, and then we had our pictures taken, and I left, and the bishop and the Pope were together. But I remember he said to me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm vicar of priests, I'm vicar general for the diocese." He said, "Well, how are vocations?" I said, "Your Holiness, you better start praying, we need them." And he laughed, and I left. But it was
I'm sure he did start praying because vocations picked up after that.
They sure did.
But that was a very memorable point in your...
I didn't want to wash my hands.
And he actually gave you the title of Monsignor?
He gave me the title, Monsignor, yes.
Okay.
And then when Benedict raised it to the honorary prelate, which was I became vicar general of the diocese, and the other vicar general was retiring. So the bishop raised that question, and he did it.
Okay. I think it's worth mentioning, too, that of the Lubbock Diocese, Bishop Rodriguez, as well as Father Martin Pina and Father Raimundo Manriquez of Plainview also went with you guys. And they got back, you said Wednesday, April 30th?
They may have gotten back sooner, I'm not positive,
Okay.
but I know that we came
That's
back
when
on
you got
Wednesday.
back.
There was also Father Arsenio there, but I forgot.
Arsenio Redulla,
Okay.
also from Plainview.
Okay.
He went also.
Awesome. And you got to do an interview with Ann Thompson of NBC. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I was getting ready we had our little blue tickets for clergy, and so they let us go in the side entrance by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. But we still had to wait in line to go through the metal detectors and have our bags x-rayed because you can't be too careful with the Pope. And so I was waiting in line, and I guess Ann heard me speaking English, and so she called me aside and asked me to do the interview. And I remember at the time I was a little bit annoyed. It's like, I want to talk
Those
to
reporters.
Then I thought, well, okay, it is Ann Thompson, so I'll give her the interview. So she interviewed me for a couple of minutes. They only used like 3 seconds of it on the air. But all of a sudden, I start getting these text messages on my cell phone. "Father Bill, we saw you on TV," you know. So I joked. I says, "Well, if I ever need an alibi, you know, I've got an airtight alibi."
There you go.
He was there.
There you go. And can you just speak briefly on the impact that these popes and now saints have had on the Catholic Church?
Well, me personally, John Paul II became Pope when I was 14 years old in 1978. Remember, Paul VI died. John Paul I was elected Pope, and he lasted only 33 days, and then he died. And then suddenly the cardinals are back in Rome for another conclave. So 1978 was the year of 2 conclaves. And then he reigned as Pope for like 26 years. I mean, the second only to Pius IX in terms of the length of his papacy. So for me, he was pretty much the Pope of my adolescence, the Pope of my adulthood, and for the first 3 years of my priesthood until 2005 when he died. And so, in fact, you know, pretty sure, you know, his inspiration is probably what inspired me to become a priest.
Okay.
I'm certainly connected to it.
The
Yeah.
other thing that's interesting, John the 23rd, he was an old man when they elected him. They thought he'd be just an interim. And he started the whole Vatican II, which was a change for the history of the church.
Right.
Yeah, he was only Pope for about 6 years,
Yeah.
but what a 6 years it was.
1963, I think. But I was in the seminary at the time, and I was just, you know, what is this Vatican II, you know? And it took for 2.5 years. But
Well, that's our show today. Thanks for watching.